This is a small collage on a canvas board that I made for Stephen very quickly when I was going to go meet him again for the first time of seeing him in 4 years, and that's when we started being together. So that's why it's so significant to me. I said, I'm going to meet him. He's an artist. I must bring him a piece of art. It's got masking tape underneath it and rubber stamps. And the funniest part is I stamped on it, "What if?" What if something's going to happen from this meeting? So, for Stephen, 10/2004. Now, of course, it's in my studio.
This is one of the first drawings I did in Lenna's studio when I joined her family. She had this great studio, and I have some art experience and talent, and I had this great little dog, Asia, and that's a little portrait of Asia. And what I did was I said, I'll show you something while she was working in her studio, and I grabbed a piece of paper and a dark pencil, and I said, you can draw a drawing by just drawing the background. And it's just the outline of the dog with this background. The dog sort of pops off the page, and then with the addition of just a couple of eyes and a nose and a little bit of shading, all of a sudden the dog's there. So I was kind of showing off for Lenna that day, but we both kind of treasure that little drawing.
Yes, I do.
It took about 15 minutes, maybe tops.
This is a collage I started in a class I was taking with a fairly famous mixed media instructor, and then I left it. I did some work on it, and then I left it, and 3 years later I picked it up and really finished it and added more little papers and little images and this kind of woven, it's not fabric and it's not paper, I don't really know what it is, but texture. And the interesting thing is the old print that I started with is Iphigenia. I think it's a Greek goddess or something. So I like it, and my grandmother gave me this frame, and it looks so elegant in the frame. I like it very much.
It's a unique piece.
Yes. This is a collaborative painting that Stephen and I did, meaning that I started the canvas, and then he came and added to it. He mostly added these big black circles. I think it was just really colored before that, and he with a brush wrote Mindstorm, I think, because that's how he felt. And then I came back. He told me later he hoped I didn't cover the top that was white with anything, but I did. I covered it with yellow, and I did these little green squares, and then after I did, he goes, "That's perfect." So
It's a lovely piece.
we love it because we did it together, and it's nice to have a larger piece of art. These are 3 small mixed media paintings and collage, a lot of collage here on canvas. These are all on canvas pieces. These are kind of raised canvas cubes, not flat like some of the other pieces I showed you. And I'm just adding different things. This is from a boat ride with Garth is driving the boat, and we're up in Canada on our honeymoon. So, and this is taking with my instructor, which we started this with, Bill Buckman, and I would always take photographs in his class. He encouraged me to, and so those are my legs as I'm listening to him lecture, and then this is the painting I did.
And what about the bottom one?
The bottom one, I don't really remember what I did. Oh, it was for Stephen on his 50th birthday. Good thing I wrote it on the back, or I wouldn't have remembered.
Very nice.
So,
This is a technique that it took me quite a few years to develop, and I call it pencil painting. It's using graphite, but I'm actually almost never actually touching a graphite pencil to the surface of the paper, a little bit to establish where the head and the eyes and the ears are, but mostly just to establish that stuff, and then working almost like an oil painter with graphite, and I'm using a very, very dark, the darkest, softest graphite I can find, and they were Grumbacher Midnight pencils, they were called. They're no longer available. And this was done about 1993, and it took me about 2 years to develop this technique. But I'm using the pencils to just get a bunch of the graphite onto rough paper, and then using what are called blending stomps to transfer graphite onto the paper and to kind of paint in darker areas. And a lot of the highlights are actually after I painted in darker areas. I'm very lightly erasing graphite off of there with various kinds of erasers, hard erasers with a razor blade to cut a sharp edge to get really very, very sharp edges where white is touching dark. And then softer areas are using the kneaded erasers that I can just use to just lightly change the texture sort of the graphite. But this technique was built about for being able to take older family photos and turn them into a piece of art. So this was actually, it only really worked for me when I was using a reference that I could do. So this was a family photo. The family photo with this was about this big. So it was about 1 inch, a little vignette of a family photo of the family of 5. My grandfather here and his wife and their 5 children. And this was their newest little baby, my Aunt Pat, and they called her Baby Forever. And it was just this technique I developed to try to take a family photo and turn it into something that you can hang on your wall forever, and that's the result.
Beautiful work. Thank you.
This is called a star book, and that's why I put a star on the front of it. I used to teach students how to make this. It's a bound book, and the tricky part about it is when you open it up, and you can even have ribbons to tie it together, it makes a star. So it's made of layers of pages, signatures they call them, and this was a book about Stephen and me. So it has from our wedding, that's a tiny copy of our, announcement that we're getting married. And all kinds of rubber stamping and pictures.
It's a very personal book.
This is a very personal book. They could pick whatever subject they wanted, but that's what I did. I think it was for our anniversary I gave it to him. But then it's sneaky because it folds back up into a regular book.
Very nice.
There are 2 paintings I did when I was in kindergarten, 5 years old. I actually kind of remember doing them, and it was in school, and we needed to work with a feather. So I worked with the brush and the tip to do these, and later, somehow, my grandmother, my father's mother, got them and framed them and always had them in her home. And at one point when she came to Florida, I believe she gave them to me. But it just, to me, exemplifies how my family always tried to encourage me. So